Okay, welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. As always, I'm joined by the incomparable Heather, who is in a King Buffalo tee, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yes.
I'm wearing our Happy Hour with Heather and Guest Butch Cassidy and Sundance tee with I sold the Doom Dog Mastiff, and I'm rocking. I realized this fedora is probably 35 years old. I got it for my Halloween costume when I went as Freddy Krueger when I was 9. Um, and I got it from a thrift store that was across the street from the apartment I grew up in New York. So 35 years old.
Wow. It's in great condition.
Yeah, well, I only wear it for this show when I'm down here, and otherwise it remains on the shelf. So,
Yeah.
and it's a little, I'm wearing it a little long. Okay, there we go. All right, so today is episode 38. It was my turn in the rotation, and I suggested we listen to a band that's called We Hunt Buffalo. Um, and we listened to three albums of theirs, the self titled We Hunt Buffalo, Living Ghosts, and then Head Smashed In. And then I also recommended groups called Pombagira, and then we also reviewed an album by the band Breaths.
Yes.
So let's kick things off. Heather selected the tracks, as is the way we do things on the show. So we're kicking things off with The Search off of We Hunt Buffalo by We Hunt Buffalo.
Yeah. The Search. This is an awesome stoner jam that feels bluesy, a song about finding your soul. The drum sequence about 2 minutes in is absolutely phenomenal. The middle part of the song is great with fast drums and the guitar with vocals that sound like they're coming from far away, a faraway land, and then it all comes together at the end.
Yeah, I wrote for The Search, I said a bluesy knockdown drag out type of song. And then in quotations, I will find my soul, which I think is probably in the chorus as one of the lyrics. I thought this would be a great song for a training sequence montage in a film. Like in Kickboxer when Van Damme is training with Chen Chao, and he's like the music is kicking in and it's just a montage. So I think
Yeah,
this would be a great song. And then it gets less bluesy and more psychedelic, but not spacey psychedelic, like hard rock psychedelic. Like I guess if there was a spectrum again of like a psychedelic spectrum, on one end would be like spacey psychedelic, like you're floating through space listening to psychedelic jams, and then the other end would be like hard rock psychedelic, which I don't know what the analogy would be. I just know it's different. So that's my 2 cents. And then the next up was a track called The Middle Sun.
again, the drumming in this song is incredible. The song builds, and I really like the tone of the guitar. The lyrics really resonated with me. Faster, oh, faster, the days go by, and I don't want to get left behind. And leave my money, leave my home. One way ticket, I'm out on my own. Don't want to get left behind.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't focus as much on the lyrics with this one. I said this was more of a melancholy hard rock psychedelic. Again, not spacey psychedelic. And I look forward to the days when they include my descriptions in, for music classes. Well, remember that musicologist Davey once referred to this as spacey psychedelic. Um, and then I said the drumming is almost a tribal sound, which I thought was really cool. Um, Powerful, great vocals, simple in its construction, and it reminded me of a line in The Simpsons when Homer says, "A plan fiendishly simple in its intricacies." So that's what I was thinking about with this song. About halfway through, the bottom drops out and it becomes a hard rockin' jam. And then in the last third, there's another tempo change, slows things down, and we're back to a bluesy hard rock feel. And then it picks things up again with a tempo, and then there's some call and response type vocals, which I really appreciated. So they're mixing things up.
Yeah.
And then the last track on the self-titled album is called Harry Barry.
Yeah, and this one is instrumental, and there's two instrumental songs on this record, and this is the closing track. Sometimes instrumental music doesn't really hold my attention, but this one did. There's a lot of layers and variation to it, a lot of different sounds for your brain to process. The sax is really beautiful, really beautifully done, and this is a song that I could listen to over and over again.
Yeah, this one had, I just wrote tone and sound unique. Don't know how to describe it, except it sounded like machines at a factory getting warmed up in the beginning, which then became the song. Sort of like on Money by Pink Floyd with the cash register leads into the song. I mean, this wasn't as pronounced as that is. Um, Pronounced is not what I'm looking for, but I'll go with it. Uh, and then it gets really psychedelic with some cool bass lines. And this time we are getting spacey psychedelic. And then I wrote there are some horns, perhaps a saxophone, and now we're entering into Hawkwind territory. And I was like surprised because I definitely loved the fact that they were going spacey psychedelic, but it just seemed like it was a different trajectory than that they'd been on. But it was cool that they were sort of pushing the envelope a little bit. So yeah, so I enjoyed the self-titled album from We Hunt Buffalo. And next up we have Living Ghosts.
Yes. And then the first song was Hold On. And I really like the vocals in this song. This has a bit higher of a range, and I really enjoy the harmonies too. The song has a different feel to it that this stood out to me as soon as I heard it. The reverb on the guitar has a really cool sound. The chorus with the vocals and the guitar together is near perfect. This is just an amazing song.
Yeah, for Hold On, I said again, starts out like a factory with sounds and then into the jam. So perhaps I was talking about this song and not the previous song when I made that similar description. Trying to put my finger on it, I think the singer sounds like Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran. That's what I kept thinking of with in terms of the vocal range or the delivery. Um, and then I wrote, this might be my favorite track, melodic stoner metal. So we have a track of the episode candidate by album two. And then the next track off Living Ghosts is Fear.
Yeah, and this has really phenomenal guitar work. The vocals have a lot of emotion. The way the guitars and the vocals are so expressive, it creates an incredible mood. I can feel it. The song feels like it could span over ends of time. The expanse of it, it's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, I wrote Fear. Love this riff slash hook. Nice and slow. Just electric dynamite. I changed my mind. This is my favorite track. Vocals less like Duran Duran and more bluesy. Alice in Chains like harmony on the chorus with Jerry Cantrell and William Duvall as opposed to Jerry Cantrell and Lane Staley. It's that and the newer iteration of Alice in Chains. Um, and then I said, in fact, fear sounds like Alice in Chains a little. And then I wrote dun dunna dunna dun, which I've forgotten how the riff sounds. So that's nothing like what the song said. But when I wrote it was like onomatopoeia for how the riff sounded. So, by the way, this is a perfect opportunity for you to say, if you really want to know what the riff sounds like, hit pause, go check out the songs on the playlist Heather put together, and then you'll know what I'm trying to say by dun dunna dunna dun. Okay, and then the last track off Living Ghosts was called The Barons.
Yeah, this song is amazing. Listen to this. In the desert haze, I saw a man twice my age. I asked him, where have I gone wrong? Where have I gone wrong? Say it loud for all to hear. Holding back will only hurt you. You might need to leave it all behind to be the man you hope to find. In that moment, I lost all my fear. With the desert wind, he disappeared. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, the Barons, they continued the bluesy with harmonizing vocals, and I wrote again. It reminded me of an Alice in Chains influence, but the tempo picks up, and at the end we have a meedly meedly type solo, which I appreciated. And yes, one day that reference will be in some sort of, dictionary about music. Is it a dun dun solo or a meedly meedly type solo? Uh, and then that finishes Living Ghosts, and we arrive at Head Smashed In, which is the third album. The first track is called Prophecy Wins.
Yeah, and this song subtly pulls you in. It's easy to get lost in it with a repetitive rhythm. It has a meditative effect, especially when there's a brief stop and then it starts again and then it repeats several times. It has a calming and relaxing effect. I don't know if that was their intention, but Arnold Schoenberg said, intelligibility in music seems to be impossible without repetition.
Wow. I just want to pause to let that sink in for a second. Okay. It's like we're trading. Well, if I start talking about lyrics, it'll be like we're trading roles here with you making references and me talking about lyrics. But all right. So, Head Smashed In, I think, is my favorite album by them that we listened to. For Prophecy Wins, I wrote Side Head Nod for the Win. The riff is so killer, it's wanted in 25 states. Heavier than most of their previous tracks. We may have another candidate for favorite song, and it's not even the song I asked for us to discuss. So when we were going in, sometimes Heather and I, if we've heard songs from bands we want to discuss, we'll ask the other person, hey, can we have this track on the list? So I asked for Heather to keep the track that we're going to talk about in two tracks called God Games, which I assumed was going to be my favorite track. And lo and behold, it may not even make the top five. I mean, I would not have expected this, but that's why we do the show. So next up after Prophecy Wins is Keep It Refreshing.
This song has a great hook. It also has meaningful lyrics that are really easy to sing along to. I think of the days of MTV when they actually used to play music videos. And I could see a video of this on there. It's almost anthemic, and the guitar, like towards the end of the song, just puts the stamp on it.
So this one I wrote, it's like each jam is a candidate for my favorite song. I don't know what to do. This has rarely, if ever, happened. And then, in the immortal words of George Costanza, this is like discovering plutonium by accident. William Duvall type vocals. I could put together a greatest hits just from these few candidates of the episode jams. Um, so as you can tell, I really have dug Prophecy Wins and Keep It Refreshing. And then that segues into our last track, what I thought would be number one, God Games.
Yeah, this is the closing song on the record, and I always like it when the closing songs are just epic. And this one is. The notes on the guitar get higher and higher, and then the vocals soar above it. Then the song comes down and ends on a softer note. I made sure that I followed this band on all social media because I just can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, this was the song that I had heard during one of my spelunking missions on YouTube that hooked me. And I remember thinking, wow, this is unlike most of their other songs. This one is closer to a ballad, basically, with some occasional heaviness. Um, and I really liked it the first time I heard it, and I was like, okay, this band should be on our show. We'll need to discuss them at some point. Um, and I would have thought that this was a lock to be my candidate of my favorite jam. But in the words of too many sportscasters, this is why we play the games. This is why we do the show. Um, so yeah, it's funny because We Hunt Buffalo was a band that I was aware of due to God Games, but now that I know that they have such an incredible catalog, I'm definitely going to go back and make sure to put all their albums on rotation. Um, so yeah, this is one of those things where I recognized the potential of the band when I heard God Games. I just didn't know how good it would be to really do a deep dive on their catalog and then discover plutonium by accident. So,
Yeah.
and then that's going to lead into Pombagira, who have an album called Iconoclast Dream, and it's just two tracks. It's two uh, like 22-minute tracks, Iconoclast Dream 1 and 2. So feel free to dive right in.
Yeah, this is great sludge doom. The vocals remind me a lot of Crowbar. Has a really low tone. I think it's one track with Iconoclast Dream 1 being one side of the album and Iconoclast Dream 2 on the other side. And the whole song lasts for 42 minutes. I read the album was inspired by visiting Haitian cemeteries and participating in voodoo ceremonies. They used vintage amps to create the sound, and the article said almost 20 were used. I read the band's name comes from an Afro-Brazilian spirit from the religion Quimbanda. Iconoclast Dream was written as a stream of consciousness. The song has a message of looking back, honoring the dead, and the mortal coil of life. The album starts off really low and heavy and then has a slower, quieter, heavy psychedelic part, and then it gets heavy again at the end. I read that this is some of their best work.
Yeah, this was so I remember in Macau when I had first gotten there in 2012, and I think YouTube was one of the few websites I had access to. So I remember specifically doing a lot of deep dives on YouTube looking for new music. And I remember I saw the album cover for Pombagira, which includes a lot of the elements you had just brought up, like voodoo, and I think there's a picture of a shaman or a practitioner or something wearing a top hat, and I just remember thinking, okay, this is definitely what I will be listening to. Um, and I remember I put it on and I thought, okay, this has all the elements that I enjoy. Um, tempo changes, distortion, sludge, doom, progressive. I mean, all those layers are there in one. I wouldn't even say it's a concept album because it's not following a story, but thematically, it's like a very specific theme. Um, so it's definitely worth checking out. And I'm not sure if what the status of the band is, if they're making. I know they have other albums. I don't know if they're still writing and producing music, but um, but if you have the chance, you should definitely check out Iconoclast Dream because it's a great album. And
Yeah.
then that'll lead to our final group, Breaths. The album is called, it's either Isolera or Isolera, I'm not sure, which the tracks are basically just four movements, movements 1 through 4. So I think it's probably one entire song that's split into four movements. But anyway, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, and Breath, this came out in June, and Breath is from Richmond, Virginia, written and performed by one man, Jason Roberts. It's instrumental. His other project is Roseneath that we talked about a few episodes ago. This is ambient drone. To me, it seems like a dreamscape. I don't remember most of my dreams, but you know how in dreams that they kind of go through phases.
Mm-hmm.
This is what this reminded me of. Part of it too, it sounded like what it might be like inside of a thunderstorm. That's the fun of listening to music like this. The sounds remind you of things, and your mind can wander from one thing to the next while the music guides you, almost like a meditation. I put this album on our YouTube playlist, and I definitely recommend listening to it.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up that you don't remember a lot. I since my aneurysm, one of the side effects is I typically don't remember my dreams anymore. Um, Rarely I will. If it's a stress dream, sometimes I will, or I'll just remember fragments of it, and then I try to wake up and write them down so I don't forget them. But this definitely, once you said that, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely similar to how a dream sort of evolves in phases. I felt like I was in a wooded forest listening to some of this. Like it was very atmospheric, and I felt like, I was in whatever that for the forest where on Star Wars and in Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks when they're in that forest and they have the speeder race. Maybe yes, no. Um, and two of the movements have sort of a metal distortion. Like most of it is very atmospheric and ambient sounding, and like you mentioned, you can sort of interpret what it reminds you of. And then there were two sections where there is more of that drone, distorted metal sound, um, but it sort of flows seamlessly into each movement. So really well done. I didn't know that this is the same musician behind Roseneath, um, but I'm even more impressed because I really dug Roseneath, and it's such a different musical project than this that
Yeah.
that just blows my. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. But definitely pick up music by Breaths and Roseneath, um, because they're both incredibly well done. And the fact that it's different genre, like almost not competing genres, but they're vastly different from each other in terms of the songwriting. So it's just remarkable. Um, but yeah, I would. It sounds like we're both definitely recommending We Hunt Buffalo, Pombagira, and Breaths to check
Yeah.
out. Heather has put together the playlist, which will have all of these songs we've discussed and more. Um, and yeah, that's I think that'll do it for episode 38. But it's always a pleasure, and you have a good rest of the day. And for those of you out there, we will do this show every Friday at posts. If
Yes.
you're an artist who would like us to review your work, we have a submission button on our website, and
Yeah.
yeah, and there will be more in store in the future. So
Yes.
so
Yes.
thank you, Heather. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.